Proposed rule changes have been officially approved by the NCAA Planning Oversight Panel. In order to speed up the game, there's a 2-minute time limit for officials to make decisions using instant replay. Secondly, players ejected for targeting and disqualified from the game now to stay on the timeline. Game officials' jurisdiction now is not. The requirement coach to be on the field during pregame warm-ups whenever players are present to avoid any promotion. The amount of duplicate jersey numbers now capped at 2.
Okay, everybody, if you're listening, if you got background music, you got background noise, you need to mute it. I'm hearing somebody's TV on right now.
Yeah, I got to watch the news while this meeting's going on. Hey,
well, I understand. I understand why should you be any different than when you are with a regular board meeting here, right? Hi, Marla.
Hi.
Carol.
Hello.
I've already spoken to this right next door to me here. Hi, Mindy.
I don't see Mindy on my screen.
I'm so sorry, Carol.
Hi, Mindy.
Hi, Carol.
Oh,
poor you, can't see me.
I can't see
Marla. Do you see Marla?
I see Brad. I see Marla. I see Philip. I see you.
There's probably too many up on the same. There's probably a way you can scroll over. Isn't that right, Philip?
Yeah, I can see that. But last time I could see everybody at once, and I had it on gallery view. There we go. I got you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I enjoyed the day.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous. Woo. Wow.
And I hope I remember how to do this from the last time.
Oh, I bet you do. Probably better than I will. I've been on 2 or 3 Zooms since then that we were supposed to, of course, we were supposed to have been on a cruise right now. And so since we didn't go on that cruise, all the participants that didn't get to go, we had a time together, shall we say, on Zoom and visit about what we would have been doing and things like that. So it was really interesting.
So it's ships ahoy, huh?
It was ships, yeah.
The ship ahoyed.
And it was Holland America, which is owned by Carnival, who's in big trouble right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry you didn't get to go.
Well, we are too.
Where were you going?
We were going to the Caribbean.
Okay. We didn't get to go to Florida either, so I'm sad.
Hi, Bob. Let the record show that since we're not on record yet, that Bob has joined the group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're supposed to have everybody here tonight, aren't we?
In trouble tonight. I learned how to raise my hand.
So
I'll give these instructions to everybody else after the meeting starts, but tonight, unless you have background music or we're concerned about somebody walking into your screen area and being loud or something like that, just leave your screen unmuted. Don't mute it. And that way I'll watch for hands. You can click the raise your hand button, but I'll watch visibly across the screen for everybody. And Philip will do the same thing. And if he sees that, he'll isn't that right? Do not unmute it. Do not mute it. Leave it unmuted once we get started. So Mindy, you look like a deer in the headlights, looking for your mute button, right?
No, I know my mute button. I'm looking for that button where you raise your hand.
Just raise your hand like this. Just do this.
Oh, I got it though. I got it.
That way I don't have to try to bounce it back and forth and forget to turn mine off and whatever like that.
So that's what you would prefer, us raising our hands?
Change my headphones to work.
You,
Right.
you don't want that little
Right.
raise hand thing that's next to
Oh,
me.
you can do it. You can do it, but I may not see
But
it.
you
This
can
way, I'll
see
just,
this.
I've got everybody on. I'll have everybody on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still lacking.
I like that, but oh, Brad's got his dinosaur out.
Yeah, I saw that.
That will be my hand raising. Is that all right?
Well, I got to get my turtle.
We're lacking Reed and Lisa.
Well, I'm not going to try it. I don't know how to, I ain't got time to figure it out. Did it? Well, that may work.
You're coming through loud and clear ear.
Does the mayor still have the echo? Mayor, would you talk?
Just a little bit. That's
And you're
that's a little
still
bit
on. I
better.
can hear
That's
you.
better.
Okay, so he doesn't have it after I turn mine off. Okay, thanks. I get COVID from ears.
Well, I started to say where everybody is, but they came on, we got 7 minutes before we can start it anyway, just for the public. Yes, ma'am. Why is that?
You go in and out. If you're rocking.
Oh, you're talking about my voice goes in and out? Okay. That's going to be hard for me to do. I rock. I move. We'll make it work. We'll make it work. Is everybody? I think somebody asked this, but I don't think everybody that's on here was on at the time. Did we have a pretty day or not today?
Gorgeous.
This is what we ordered, wasn't it?
But that makes everybody want to go out.
I did.
All over.
Oh, no, we didn't. We didn't do that.
We didn't either.
I've been to Springdale a couple of times to Sam's and what have you. Other than that, the only place I've been is grocery store here. And Kathy and I went out last week. We went to Arby's and grabbed us a couple of sandwiches and drove out to City Lake Park and just sat there and watched the lake. And boy, the lake was so pretty. It was so full. It's just gorgeous. But that's the extent of our travels has been. That's it.
We've done a lot of online grocery shopping, and I've even had groceries delivered. And I like that online grocery shopping.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Philip?
Hi, Steve. Or as David Cameron used to say, there's Mr. Constant.
So when I talk,
I hear you. I'm hearing it.
you need to turn your volume down
Okay.
or turn it off altogether when I talk.
Oh, I got it up to 9.
So let me, now
Here,
there's,
that's
can you still
perfect.
hear that ringing?
No, that's perfect.
Okay, when I
Okay.
talk, can you still hear me?
When you talk, I'm going to mute. I'm going to turn my volume off because I can hear you.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, because I got it turned quite a ways down, so.
The issue for the mayor and I being in the same room is the reverberation and the echo. So we've got to work on our volumes and our muting and unmuting ourselves when we speak.
Or as I used to tell some of my salespeople, use your inside voice.
Yes.
Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
Did you enjoy the day?
Yes, did you?
Still enjoying it. Yes.
Yes. This weather has been perfect.
Christina, okay. Don Clark is on. Renee's on. Ben Rhodes is on. And we're just lacking Reed. He's got about 3 minutes. make sure I'm right on this while no public's listening or anything like that, but I've got it down for tonight that Reed Carroll starts the, I don't know if I'm right on that. Yeah, Reed Carroll starts the director's reports, which means when it gets around, that means that
They can, but.
Lisa, you will adjourn the meeting tonight, right? Didn't you adjourn it last time, Marla?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I got Carol's name written down here, but that's wrong. It will be Lisa that will adjourn tonight. I've been spelling your name wrong all along, Lisa. I've been spelling it with an I, not an E. Sorry. Hello, Reed.
Good evening.
Good evening. I was just so you get yourself prepared for this. I was telling them that you will get to start the director comments this evening, and Lisa will make the motion to get us out of here. So
Okay.
and okay, before I get on, you all are the ones that are most concerned about this. When you just don't even worry about muting your mics. That way we don't have to worry about dead pauses and things like this. So just leave unless you're aware that you may have some background music or noise that could interfere. If that's the case, you may need to, but if you don't, if you're by yourself or whatever in your office or what have you, just take it off of mute and leave it open. And I'll call on you like it was a regular board meeting. Raise your hand. You don't even need to push that button if you don't. You just raise your hand. I can see you. It's as long as you're on camera. So if I don't see you, Philip will catch you. Okay. So like I say, here in just about a minute and a half, I'll ask everybody to. Well, you can leave it on mute. You can leave it on mute right now, but once the meeting gets started, go ahead and take it off of mute. Okay. Just click your microphone, unmute it. That makes sense. But what we got time wise? I got 1 minute here. So Director Coleman, you ready for tonight?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
I learned how to raise my hand, so you're in trouble.
I'll ask you, since I've asked everybody else, Bob, did you enjoy this lovely Arkansas weather, Siloam Springs weather today?
Well, between houses, I did. You should be moving.
You're still moving back and forth, aren't you?
Yes, sir. We're just like a fine motel. We sleep in one house and eat another.
Okay. And one of the other things I'll do tonight is if we have any comments from that we recognize as a non-participant but a attender, I'll make some pause to make sure that they've got time for it to connect. Otherwise, if I start too quickly, that takes a little bit of time for that to start. So, all right, if you all are ready, I'm getting ready to bang the gavel. You ready? Okay. Well, good evening. I call this virtual meeting of the Siloam Springs Board of Directors for April 21st, 2020 to order. Roll call.
Sappington. Here. Smiley.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
If you would please stand while Director Coleman leads us in our opening prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Gracious Father, we thank you for a beautiful day. Thank you that we've been able to enjoy your creation. We ask you to guide us tonight as we make decisions for our city. We're thankful to you for the privilege of doing so. And we just ask that you guide us and give us your wisdom in Christ's name. Amen.
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 I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible,
Justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
make sure everybody understands that that's what we're going to do, and I'll try to quit leaning in and out here. Sorry about that. So, but like I say, now that we've started, go ahead, board members, go ahead and unmute, turn your mics, turn your mute off. In other words, there shouldn't be a red microphone there for me. Should be clean. Do what? Yeah, that's. Oh, must have back. Okay, unless you got. That's right. If you got background music, background noise, you need to turn it off. Like I said, like that, Lisa. Now I know why you had yours off. You were looking at me like, he told me not to unmute it. Sorry about that. Okay, board. You have each received a copy of the minutes of the workshop for April 7, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Carol Smiley and the second from Marla. Is that correct?
Do you want me to raise my hand?
Just go. You can. Yeah. Go ahead and raise your hand in that way, and then you can. I'll recognize you. Okay. Is there anyone who feels there need to be changes made to those minutes as you have received them? Being none, we will vote to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Minutes are approved, and near as I can tell. All right. You've also received the regular minutes of the regular meeting of April 7, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second. Is there anyone who feels there need to be changes made to the minutes as you have received them? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 That's the delayed aye. Opposed, nay. Motion, the minutes are approved. Thank you. All right. I'm just need to see if do we have anybody? Yes, we got several participants here.
You have 2 attendees.
That's what I'm looking for, is the attendees.
There's 2.
Okay, Carla and Mark. Okay, since this is the particular time of our meeting when the public may address any city business not listed on the agenda, I'm going to assume, unless Marla raises her hand wanting to speak, that she will speak whenever the drive-through ordinance number 20-08 comes forward. All right. Thank you for attending. Thank you for being there, Mark, and for Carla. All right. Let's see now. So we only had those 2, so we will move right on into our regularly scheduled items. First one is contract and approvals. The first one is dedication of utility easements. Ben Rhodes on 300 block of South Country Club Road.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board, Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. Before you is a lot line adjustment survey that will be dedicating new utility easements for public use. Staff will approve this survey once we have the final version back from the surveyor. We are recommending acceptance of the shown dedications and are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any comments from our attendees? We've got another one. Dorothy is on there. So if anybody, if you are as an attendee, if you can raise your hand button, then I will recognize you. Other than if we don't see that happen, we will move on. All right. Being no hands raised, I'm going to turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff. Marla?
Are we going to have any background information up behind when Ben's talking or when anyone's presenting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But There really wasn't, on this particular one, I don't think you had prepared anything for that like that, had you been?
Right.
No, there wasn't a PowerPoint for this.
Yeah, he has no PowerPoint on this, but yes, you will have something for
Okay.
to be able to, and we practiced it yesterday and they got it done. So we're gonna lean on Ben's expertise to make sure that you get everything you said. But yes, he'll have the stuff, so you will have information there in front of you. Okay, if there's no comments from the board, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Carol?
I move we approve the dedication of utility easements at the 300 block of South Country Club Road.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Who said second? Is that you, Lisa, that said second, or is that Marla?
It was Mindy.
Mindy, okay. I heard that before I saw the hands go up. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. Roll call.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman, Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington.
Yes.
Motion is approved. And Bob, you might speak up a little bit louder. I could just barely hear you. I'm hearing everybody else, but I couldn't hardly hear you at all. I could hardly hear you at all. All right, the next agenda item is a contract for Siloam Springs Airport hangar with Diamond Sea Construction in the amount of $113,688.60. And Don Clark, welcome aboard, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Don Clark, Community Development Director. Board, what you have before you tonight for your consideration is a contract for removal of debris and replacement of the damaged hangars at the Siloam Springs Airport in the amount of $113,688.60. On October 21st, 2019, a EF1 tornado caused damage to 3 hangars at the airport. So what this contract is to do is to completely replace one of those hangars. It'll be about a 50% replacement on another one and repair the third one. I will share my screen to show you the picture of the damage. So there's the damage that was sustained to the hangars. Since that time, staff has sought and received bids to demo and replace the hangars. 5 bids were received, and the bids were open on February 4th, 2020, and the low bidder was Diamond Sea Construction. Since the time we opened those bids, staff worked with the insurance to get the needed documents to show the proof of loss. Insurance has agreed to cover the cost of the repairs, excluding the $10,000 deductible. Staff is seeking approval to proceed because we're not currently making any revenue off the damaged hangars. Once we get the funds from the insurance, we will reimburse the funds to the city budget. Staff is recommending approval and standing ready for any questions.
Thank you. I'll ask any attendees that would like to make a comment. Philip, I'm going to have to call on you because I can't see it on my screen now.
Don, can you stop sharing your screen?
Thank you. Well, we lost one. We still have Carla and Mark Hayop. If there's no comments from the attendees, then I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff. Oh, Carol?
I just wanted to make it clear that all this is going to cost us is the $10,000 deductible, correct?
That's correct. That is correct. In the end, now, to expedite where it may be costs involved, but upfront, maybe some upfront monies or during construction monies that need to be done, but that'll be at the $10,000.
I don't remember. Were these occupied and were they leased at the time of the damage?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
Okay. Will the same people or will the same occupants go back in there?
Yes, because they have current leases. We have kind of moved them around at the airport. with the anticipation of us getting this fixed and getting them back into for the duration of their leases.
Thanks, Don.
Marla?
Is there a time frame on getting it completed?
When we open the bids, Diamond C is currently also the contractor who's working on the East Main project. So I think once they're cleared up there, they're going to move out to the airport. I think what we were thinking is a little bit over a month.
All right, thank you.
Any others? If there's no further comments, Brad.
I'm ready to make a motion, Mayor.
Okay, Brad, go ahead.
All right. I make a motion, we approve contract with Diamond C Construction for the demolition, removal, debris, replacement of storm damage hangers in the amount of $113,688.60.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion? Should the motion include the fact that it's the anticipated commitment by the city is just $10,000 deductible? Should that be included in that motion?
Yes.
No, it doesn't necessarily. Okay, because we're actually just doing the bid, not how it's being our portion of it. Everybody understands that. That's in the memo. Everybody knows what's there. Okay. If there's no further comments or questions, then I'll turn it over. I'll turn it over to Renee for a roll call.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Next, we will move on to appointment of the Benton County Solid Waste District Board. With, as I don't have my screen, I don't have it open, but based on the fact that this is a appointed position for this, the Benton County Solid Waste District Board, and Don Tennyson has been on this board, I think, since its inception, and actually asked to be on it again, but he felt like he'd been on there the 11 years or so that he served on there. He felt like that was enough time. He has indicated he would like to not be appointed to that board, and so in his stead, I have elected to ask. We have elected to ask Steve Gorzik if he would be willing to serve on that board. He has said yes. And it still is my duty to appoint, but it's subject to the approval of you, the board. So my appointment would be Steve Gorzik. And what is the term on that? Can somebody tell me, since I don't have it open? Does anybody have that open?
Appointment Benton County Solid Waste District Board.
I know, but the term.
It doesn't say how many years. I don't see that.
Okay. Maybe it's until they get tired of you. I don't know, Steve, or something like that. I'm not sure. Well, we'll know. We'll insert that if there is a need for it, but I don't think there is, evidently. So do I have a motion to approve the appointment of Steve Gorzik to the Benton County Solid Waste District Board?
Mr. Mayor,
Carol?
I move that we approve the mayor's appointment of the Public Works Director to serve on the Benton County Solid Waste District Board.
Second.
And Marla is second. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? Being none, then we will vote on the motion to approve. Roll call?
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
All right. Motion is approved. Thank you, Steve, for your willingness to serve on that. Thank you, sir. All right, now we're going to move into ordinances. And our first ordinance this evening is ordinance 20-808. Second reading, amending City Code, Chapter 102, for zoning code drive-through regulations. Ben Rhodes?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the board and Rhodes Senior Planner. For the second reading of the drive-through code citing design update, I'd like to show you a few new slides on this to further clarify staff's position on the ordinance. If you bear with me one moment, I'm going to share my screen to show you these new slides. Okay. So the question came up earlier as to what buildings would be benefited from the proposal to reduce the minimum drive aisle width to 10 feet for buildings that are 20 years or older and that are less than 18 feet from the side property line. So I'm presenting to you a map that shows you 3 sites that we picked out to illustrate this condition. These were picked out of approximately 10 different candidates on Highway 412. And I did do a cursory review just over the city on the other locations, not on Highway 412, that I've gotten up to 13 so far. This first one is at 1116 Highway 412 West. It is presently operating as an auto zone. However, it could be converted into a bank or credit union or a drive-up pharmacy if the present occupant ever relocated. There is only 10.3 feet on the east side. So having a reduced drive width makes the drive-through possible. It should be understood that with the proposed code change, an additional green space variance is still needed for the 6-foot green space buffer. The only thing the code permits in what we're proposing tonight is a narrower drive, that being going from 10 to, or 12 to 10 feet. So in cases where building the property line is less than 16 feet or less, an additional green space variance would still be needed to develop a drive-through at that location. The second site here you're looking at is 1981 Highway 412 West. This is the site of the former Italian Grill restaurant. Is located to the west of the American Best Value Inn and Suites and east of a State Line Trading Co. Staff believes this could be easily reoccupied as a restaurant. And as you know, in these difficult times, restaurants are unable to have dine-in service. So drive-through lanes will greatly benefit these businesses. In this case, there's only 11 feet to the side property line. The property also abuts a residential zone. So a special use permit review would also be triggered if a drive-through is proposed at this location. The third example I'm showing, this is 975 Highway 412 West, which is currently unoccupied. As you see in the site plan, the lot is triangular, which leaves a choke point on the left side of the structure. There's only 15 feet to work with. This building could reasonably be converted into a small restaurant or other drive-through service, such as a dry cleaners or a small credit union. Community Development Department staff has not received any additional comments since the last ordinance reading. Staff and the Planning Commission continue to recommend approval, and we stand by for any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And now then, any comment from our attendees?
Before you go there, Mayor, Ben, can you, thank you.
Okay.
And there is one.
Carla?
Second.
There you go. Carla, are you, I think you're on now. You're unmuted. Well, it's not showing unmuted yet. It's still showing muted down there, Philip.
Does that work?
There we go, Carla. There you go.
Okay. Carla Wasson, 1004C South Mount Olive. Last summer, the city approached me on behalf of the owner of Taco Jake's and asked me whether my family would sell Taco Jake's 10 feet of land on the side of the funeral home's lot on Highway 412 so that Taco Jake's could be converted to a drive-through restaurant. Shortly after that, the funeral home received a notice of a variance application to permit Taco Jake's to build a drive-through lane within a foot of the funeral home's east lot line. The Board of Adjustment denied that request because the drive-through lane would have been too close to the funeral home's east lot line. In early September, Taco Jake's filed another variance application to permit a drive-through 10 feet wide that would also have come within a foot of the funeral home's east lot line. That application was withdrawn because the city staff proposed this ordinance. The provision in the ordinance reducing the minimum width of a drive-through lane to 10 feet for buildings 20 years old or older would have allowed Taco Jake's to place a drive-through lane on the funeral home's east lot line, and the funeral home would not have been entitled to notice or opportunity for a hearing. When my family and I appeared at the meeting back in November last year, this is what we were so mad about. Okay. Like Taco Jake's, there are many older buildings in town forming with regard to the perimeter green space requirement because the properties were paved up to the lot line, or at least in part before the perimeter green space was required. On lots where this type of nonconformity exists, the ordinance would allow drive-through lanes to be built up to the adjoining lot line. It's a bad law because it would allow a drive-through lane on one lot to encroach on a neighbor. As things are now, the Board of Adjustment can grant a variance permit for a 10-foot wide drive-through lane, even if it might have negative consequences for the neighboring property owners. But in the variance permit process, the neighboring property owners are entitled to notice and an opportunity to be heard. This ordinance refuses neighboring property owners the right to notice and hearing in connection with a matter that affects their property rights. It's not only a bad policy to exclude interested parties from this process, it violates due process rights that are guaranteed by the state and federal constitutions. The Taco Jake's applications have been a disaster, and I think the city is responsible for that, and the staff doesn't want it to happen again. So their answer is to change the development permit procedure to remove constitutional safeguards. I think there's another solution. I think the city needs to own their mistakes and learn from them. The city staff could improve their job performance, and I have specific suggestions on that. But for now, I'll just say that when an application is clearly going to be controversial, as this one was, it's particularly important for the city staff to do their jobs well. I'm asking that you strike this provision in the ordinance that allows for the 10-foot wide drive-through lane. Thank you.
Carla, can I ask you a question? You said in your last statement, you said you were asking that they strike the 10-foot.
Exactly, the provision that would allow a 10-foot minimum in a building that's 20 years old or older.
Right. Okay, I just want to make sure striking that was what you were after. I couldn't quite understand it. So, okay. Anyone else want to contact? I'm not sure who Samsung SM is, but right now that's a new joint attendee, and we are open for public comments regarding contact ordinance 20-08. If anybody else other than Carla would wish to address that, they need to raise their hand. Being none, then I will turn it over to the board for comments and or questions from staff. Marla?
As you know, I voted no against this last time. And my concerns is that we're changing our ordinances to fit the needs of the public when we really, the public needs to see our ordinance as the guide and the rule. If a building's not going to work, it's not going to work, no matter what staff does. And we're going to run into those situations. I don't think that a 20-year-old building should be given accommodation of a narrower path. I think if we're going to have an ordinance and it's 12 foot, then it's 12 foot. If an older building wants to perhaps file a variance or something, or see what they can work out, that's fine. But if a building won't work, it's not going to work. And it's not up to staff to make changes in the ordinance and stuff to fit the needs. And people that are selling their buildings know this. And so we need to get something consistent and stay with it.
Thank you, Marla. Carol?
I agree with Marla. I think that we don't need the 20 years or older or the 10-foot width. One of the reasons why I'm thinking that, a lot of them are still going to have to go for a variance because of the green space. So can they not do both variances at the same time if they need to do that? That is one of my questions. Can you answer that, Ben?
Certainly, they can apply for 2 variances at once. Yeah, we were just trying to maybe cut that down as much as we could in situations where, say, if it was 16 to 18 feet away, you know, you wouldn't need that green space variance. And so then we wouldn't have to then in turn apply for a drive with variance from 12 to 10 feet in those situations.
And also in one of the, and I think it was example number 3, and maybe I wasn't looking at the right building, but I think one of the problems that I see is the same with, we were facing with Taco Jake's. When you have that narrow width, it's very difficult for you to have that drive-through where you get behind that building, because that third one looked like there wasn't any space behind there sufficient to do a drive-through and turn around if they're using it for parking. I just would be in favor of removing the 20 years or older and the 10-foot.
Thank you. Brad?
Mayor, so as I was reviewing our board goals that I didn't turn in on time, and thank you for the extension for the city administrator, but one of our goals we requested from staff was to review some of our codes. And within that, I've been requesting for quite some time what we would call form-based codes. And we've reduced that down to a hybrid code. And what those codes are designed to do is to make sure that older spaces can be repurposed and reused. And I think this is what staff was trying to accomplish. And so as we move forward, not only this ordinance, but looking forward into the future, I just want to make a couple of folks clear, and specifically those that aren't familiar with form-based codes, that this is what's going to come to the table. And if you've been in the community for a long period of time, that's going to require a change that you're not familiar with as we try to repurpose and revitalize and continue economic growth, not only downtown, but in this case, specifically the 412 corridor, or you'll end up with empty buildings and economic development will stall, and then you'll be demolishing buildings, which is hard for a startup business to get into a brick and mortar, because when you go ground up, it's costly. And due to these economical times, due to a global epidemic, providing the entrepreneur any chance to thrive in this economy, and with some of the business loans that will become available at a low interest rate, it would seem to me that we're providing new startup businesses an opportunity that may not have been there before. And that's one way to look at it, and that's the way I see this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett. Mindy?
First, I have a question of Ben and then a comment. And I think you've explained this. I just need further clarification on the green space and drive width. So the width you're proposing is at least 12 feet, except for those buildings 20 feet or 20 years old or older. And then is there supposed to also be an additional 6 feet of landscaping?
Yes, that's correct. That regardless of the age of the building, the 6 foot green space buffer would be still required. So
in addition to, okay.
Yes, go ahead.
The two examples that you showed us, the first two examples, did you not say that there was a total of only 10 to 11 feet?
That's correct. It was just to illustrate how tight some of these older buildings are. And so in those instances, they would have to apply for a variance for the green space buffer for those examples that I showed.
Okay, a variance asking to not be required to do the buffer.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, well, my comment, thank you for that. My comment, and this may seem somewhat simplistic, but over the last few weeks, we have seen a lot of opportunities from restaurants. They've gotten really creative and offered curbside delivery and or pickup by those restaurants who don't have drive-thrus. Based on what I've heard from some of the people that work there, this whole curbside pickup or curbside delivery and pickup is actually going better than they had expected. Probably not what they would like still, and I'm sure that there are people who are looking forward to being able to just drive through again. But I want to believe that pickup or curbside delivery, if those are the only options going forward for those businesses that don't have drive-thrus, that people will continue to patronize those restaurants. So with it said, I'm just really not comfortable with a blanket 10-foot minimum for buildings 20 years or older, especially when the option to ask for a variance will still be there. I understand what Director Burns is saying, but by striking the 20-year or older provision for the older buildings, we're not absolutely saying no. We're just saying it's a different process to get that approval.
Community. If your board, if you don't mind, Carla Wasson is asked to make a comment. Carla, Philip, would you unmute her? Carla? Not there yet. Carla, do you have to unmute yourself once we've let you? Can you try that? There we go. Carla, go ahead. Okay, Carla.
Okay.
For the record, this is Carla Wasson.
Yeah, it was my understanding on the second application that in the Taco Jake case, basically that was not going to be a problem with the green space, because where it was going to basically come a foot from our property line was where there was no green space. There wasn't being any green space required. Basically, you know, he needed the width variance so that he could go through, and it was going to cut really close to us because basically it was paved really all the way up to the property line. So, you know, it sounds like to me you weren't requiring a variance from the green space requirement on that second application.
Ben, you want to respond to that?
Mrs. Watson is correct. The first application was a green space buffer where the drive was going to be 1 foot from the property line in the part of the lot where there is currently green space lawn. The applicant came back a second time and maintained the 6 foot green space buffer up to the fence line, but then requested to shorten the drive from 12 to 10, but then he withdrew that application, if memory serves correctly. I can't speak to, I'd have to look at the site plan, but I can't speak to how close the vehicles would have gotten once they got into that paved area, the front parking lot to Mrs. Watson's side property line. But, you know, it was certainly going to be 6 feet away from her fence line where the green space area was.
Thank you, Ben. Lisa, go ahead. Lisa. Got it. There you go.
Okay. Sorry, I live on a farm, so you're gonna hear all kinds of things in the background, so I try to mute it. This one's been hard for me, and I feel bad for the Taco Jake situation, but I also know people that have older commercial buildings that if you tighten the restrictions and make it more difficult and lengthen the process to be able to add better things to your business, then you're making it harder on our business owners. And the idea isn't to make it harder to have business in Siloam, it's to make it where everybody has the fair amount to do the right things in Siloam. And so I agree with Brad. We don't want to restrict people from having business. And right now, during this pandemic, this is the perfect time to realize that we can't be so restrictive that we're going to potentially close a business down, or because they have an idea to put a drive-through in. We want to make it easier for them to be able to still provide a service even during hard times. So I tend to agree with Brad on this one, but I do feel bad about the Taco Jake situation. I really do.
All right, Marla.
I think as we approach this decision, we need to be as upfront as we can with business owners. If we say 10 foot, but you still need to file a variance for the green space, there's a lot of wishy-washy information going on. We're doing almost like spot by spot anyway. I don't think that we're prohibiting anybody. It'll just encourage them to choose a better location. Not all 20-year-old buildings in Siloam are going to be able to have drive-throughs for matter, you know, I don't care if they're a bank or a drugstore or if they're a food establishment. We need to be consistent. If they know they're working with an older building, your expectations are you're going to have to look at the lane width and you're going to have to look at the green space. Enough said.
Thank you, Marla. Bob, Bob?
Yes, sir. Point of clarification. If this ordinance is to pass the way it reads, does a person that has a 10-foot or is applying for a 10-foot drive-through, they still have to have a green space variance?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, go ahead, Ben. You can go ahead and answer that.
So yes, nothing in the proposed ordinance is affecting or changing the current rules regarding the side green space buffer. So if you have a 10-foot drive that you are only 3 feet from the property line, you still have to get a green space variance, even though the code allows you to get a 10-foot driveway lane width. I hope that answered your question.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the 10-foot drive-through in this item is not just an automatic approval to go do it. There's another requirement, which is green space. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be automatic approval if the building was 20 years older to provide a little bit of relief to these older buildings and for just by reducing the lane width.
But the question I think is they would still have to go for a variance on the green space.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Carol.
And I do believe in form-based codes because that's part of my goal. But I do believe that when you, with these open buildings, not everybody is going to go into the and expect to have a drive-through. And I think that's already been stated. And if they're going to have to go for a variance for the green space, I think that they should have to go for a variance for the 12-foot. And if they know that up front when they come in, if they're doing their due diligence, whether they're renting or they're buying that building, then they know these are the things that we need to look at. And we need to check it out and make sure that we are going to be qualifying if we want to drive through. And I think that there should be some responsibility on the person that is leasing or buying the property rather than putting it on the city staff to make it happen. Thank you.
All right, Brad.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Brad.
July 17th, first quarter 2019 update. Economical development and growth goal statement. Recruit, encourage new economic activity that increases tax revenue and the number of jobs in the community. And that's just our first statement. And I think what staff has done here is what we've requested of them. And in light of that, I understand what folks are, my fellow board members are saying, but I am not an entrepreneur. I don't own a building. I haven't sunk the money into that. But I know folks that have, and I know folks that have lost it. And I know folks that spend their whole life savings trying to get that dream alive. And I think that's part of economic development. And I believe staff was just trying to reduce that. And along those lines, I think if we think in the bigger picture, what staff was looking to acquire and accomplish by this, I think at the end of it, and it may be down the road because there's right now, there's nothing going to be happening for quite some time, but somebody out there is planning, and 412, just based on the traffic flow, not anything to do with the residents of Siloam, based on the traffic flow, has not reached its full potential. And when that comes to fruition, our tax base is going to increase, and anything we can do to increase that tax base to ensure the longevity of the quality of life for the citizens of Siloam, I believe it's our obligation. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Lisa, did you have a comment you wanted to make? Okay, go ahead and unmute there. Okay. Okay.
I have to say I'm on the fence on this one because I do see it both ways. But something Brad said triggered my memory that my husband and I own commercial property in Siloam Springs. The decision I make on this is not based off on any of our commercial properties. They don't fit into this category right now. That doesn't mean we will not buy commercial property in the future, but right now, and we're not looking at any property, but I do want it to be said, in case anything's ever said, that we do have property, commercial property in Siloam, and any decision I make is not based off of the property we own.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, any other comments or questions of staff? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to suspend on ordinance number 20-08 on its, placing it on its second reading title only. Go ahead. Okay, Carol.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we place ordinance number 20-08 on its second reading, suspending the rules and reading title only, and striking the 20 years or older and 10-foot width requirement.
So you're
Second.
You're amending that.
So I am amending it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion as amended? Being none, let me make sure okay, go ahead, Brad.
So, Mr. Mayor, so can we not read, as it's stated now and do its second reading, and they can vote no, and they can make the amendment and bring it to the third reading so we can see it written out completely?
I was just going to caution the board when you're dealing with an ordinance, placing it on a suspend, that it requires a vote of 5. If that were to fail and pass with a vote of 4, then the city administrator would be required to read the entire ordinance. So keeping in mind, when you're in your first and second readings of an ordinance, that pass it does not mean that you're necessarily in favor of it. You want it to move it forward to get it to its third and final reading. Otherwise, you get involved every time with that. Director Smiley's in order on that. Like I said, if it were not to get the needed 5 and still pass, then we would have to read the ordinance. Am I correct in that statement?
Yeah, Mayor, if I may, the motion whether to suspend the rules and to read by title only has nothing to do with the substance of the ordinance. So my suggestion is, if there's to be an amendment, I would suggest dealing with that as a separate motion, and then dealing with the motion to suspend the rules on its own. Doing those as 2 separate things, because they really are 2 separate things, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to combine them, in my opinion.
So if I might ask, should I make a motion to amend and say what I want to amend? Is that what you're wanting me to do?
Yeah, correct. Just make the amendment, and then whether that passes or not, and then we vote to suspend or not.
Okay. All right.
If it doesn't pass, then we would then vote.
We still don't have to read it.
On the ordinance as it was previously stated. Otherwise, if it does pass, then it will be as amended. Is that correct, Jay?
Correct.
Okay. Can we go back? Can we step back into this then? And Carol, can you?
Okay.
We're in discussion on motion 20-08, and then I think what you're wanting to do is make a motion to amend the motion that would be that is on the table already. Is that
I
correct?
want to make a motion to amend ordinance 20-08, striking the 20 years or older building and the 10-foot width.
Okay.
And I second that.
Okay. So, and as we move forward, if that amendment, if the vote to amend is approved, then we will go forward with the ordinance as amended. Otherwise, it would go forward.
Suspending the rules.
Right.
Okay.
So we have a motion to amend ordinance 20-08, striking the 20-year language of the ordinance. Is that correct?
And the 10-foot line.
10 foot.
Striking the 20 and the requirement for the 10-foot. Yes, I think we got that right. We'll depend on. We're good. Okay. Is there further discussion on the motion to amend? We still have the original motion out there that is there. Now we're asking to amend it. Okay. Do I have a second?
I did.
Marla, you did that? Okay, I'm sorry. That was to amend.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there further discussion on the motion to amend? Being none, we will vote on the motion to amend. striking the 20-year-old building comments.
And
Roll
10
call.
feet.
Okay, and the 10-foot width, yes. If there's no further comments, we'll roll call.
Chrysler,
No.
Coleman,
No.
Carroll,
No.
Sappington,
I vote yes for the amended.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
No.
Hunt,
Yes.
The motion to offend, excuse me, the motion to amend fails by a vote of 4-3. So we will go back to the original motion. And who was the original motion made by? We need a new motion now. Yeah, that's right, because we changed it. We've gone backwards now. We strictly need a new motion to approve and suspend on ordinance number 20-08, placing it on its second reading title only, as presented to the board in its originality. Brad?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we place ordinance number 20-08 on its second reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only.
Second.
Is that Reed? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion to approve on ordinance 20-08? Being none, then we'll vote on the motion to suspend on 20-08. Roll call.
Coleman,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Sappington,
No.
Smiley,
No.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
No.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Okay, you just did it. You passed the motion without a vote of 5, which means we now, unless I'm wrong, Jay, that requires us to read this ordinance out loud.
You're correct, Mayor.
Remember, it's a done deal, but I'm just going to tell you, a yes vote on the second reading doesn't mean you're going to approve it in the final. Keep that in mind as we sit back and listen to Philip read this motion. Excuse me, Marla.
I don't feel comfortable voting yes when I really feel no, and I can't do that. So I justify that.
Okay, I'm just making sure that everybody understands. Okay. So that being said, since the motion to suspend on ordinance 20-08 failed to get the super majority required of 5 votes, then we're required to have Philip read this ordinance.
That's a long one.
Okay, Philip, it's all yours.
Ordinance number 20-08, an ordinance amending chapter 102 zoning code of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code with respect to drive-through aisles. Whereas there are presently no specific provisions for drive-through aisles in the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, and whereas the absence of said provisions causes certain practical difficulties in site design, development, and accessibility for businesses utilizing them, and whereas city staff has observed code issues complicating development permit administration with respect to drive-through aisles due to the lack of guidance and uniform standards, and whereas based upon feedback received and the review of practices in other cities, staff believes the proposed changes simplify the development process and increase the efficiency of site plan reviews and approvals. And whereas a public hearing on the proposed changes were held on the 10th of March, 2020, before the City of Siloam Springs Planning Commission, after proper notice required by law, and whereas, after receiving comments from staff and the public and due consideration of the proposed revisions, a motion recommending approval of the zoning code amendments was passed by the Planning Commission. And whereas, the following amendments to the zoning code use code are hereby found to be in the best interest of public safety and of the city's aesthetic appearance and of the orderly growth and economic well-being of the city. Now, therefore, be it enacted by the Board of Directors of the City of Siloam Springs as follows. Section 1, Amendment. Article 1, Chapter 102 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code is hereby amended by the addition of the following definition to Section 102-1. Drive-through or drive-through shall mean a vehicular lane or aisles provided to serve a drive-through retail or service use, including the required drive-through stacking area in front of the order and pickup windows, and the exit lanes or aisles to a public street. A drive-through lane shall not be considered a driveway unless it also functions as a driveway as defined by this code. Section 2, Amendment. Article 5, Chapter 102 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code is hereby amended by the addition of the following provisions. Section 102-77.1, Drive-through lane design standards. 1, surface. The surface shall be paved with asphalt, concrete, or impervious paving, meeting load standards as determined by the administrator. 2, width. Drive-through aisles shall be a minimum of 12 feet wide. However, if another driveway abuts the drive-through aisle, the width may be reduced to 10 feet. The minimum interior curved radius for a drive-through aisle shall be 10 feet. The drive-through aisle shall be no more than 15 feet wide unless the drive aisle is used as part of an established driveway or parking lane. The lane aisle width is measured along the drive surface from the front of the curb to the building or opposite curb. If there is no curb, the width of measurement is from the center of each dividing stripe or other form of demarcation. For existing buildings that are 20 years or older and are 18 feet or less from the side property line, and the drive-through aisle is adjacent to the same side property line, the drive-through aisle width may be reduced to a minimum of 10 feet wide if the pickup window does not protrude more than 1 foot into the drive lane. Number 3, stacking distance. Drive-up windows shall provide at least 100 feet of stacking space for each facility as measured from the service distribution window or unit to the entry point into the drive-through lane from the parking lot or street right-of-way. Non-food and/or non-beverage businesses may reduce the stacking space to a minimum of 60 feet. No stacking space may occupy any portion of a public right-of-way. 4, intersection with the street. Each drive-through entrance and exit, when accessing a public right-of-way, shall be subject to the driveway spacing standards in Section 102-78 of this code. Exceptions may be granted by the designated approving authority if meeting the spacing standards are impossible and the drive-through is located where it is most nearly consistent with the spacing requirements or when drive-through pull-out spaces are provided. 5, lane markings and demarcation. Each entrance to an aisle in the direction of traffic flow shall be clearly designated by signs and pavement markings. Pedestrian walkways that intersect the drive-through aisles shall be clearly visible and delineated by textured and painted paving. 6, landscaping. For drive-through aisles that abut a green space buffer of 6 feet wide or greater, shrubs measuring to a minimum of 3 feet tall shall be planted at a rate of 1 shrub for every 3 linear feet abutting the drive-through aisle. Shrubs are to be a variety designated by the landscape code and shall be planted on the green space strip that is opposite to the pickup window, building, or terminating service unit, if no pickup window exists. This requirement shall take precedent over any other shrub landscaping required for this designated area. 7, parking. The provisions of the drive-through service facilities shall not justify a reduction in the number of required off-street parking spaces for the accompanying use. 8, pickup and order windows. Drive-through windows shall be prohibited on the street frontage side of a building. When a building is located on a corner lot, drive-through windows shall be prohibited on the side facing the larger or more heavily traveled street. 9, Hours of operation. Facilities utilizing an electronic speaker system and located on a site within 200 feet of a residential property, measured from the order window or station to the outer wall of the nearest residential structure. Hours of operation for the drive-up/drive-through service shall be limited from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. If the use is located greater than 200 feet from a residential use or does not use an electronic speaker system, then there are no restrictions on the hours of operation. 10. Screening. Drive-through uses requiring a special use permit shall construct a solid screen along abutting property lines with a residential R district. Solid screening is to be constructed of opaque materials that obscure light trespass to the residential property from vehicles utilizing the drive-through use. Those sections of Chapter 102 not specifically referenced herein remain unchanged and are omitted for brevity. Section 3, Administrative Corrections. The City Attorney is hereby authorized to make grammatical and stylistic corrections to this ordinance that do not affect the substance of any rule. Section 4, Repealer and Severability. Prior ordinances in conflict with the provisions enacted herein are repealed to the extent of the conflict. If any provision of a section of this ordinance or the application thereof to any person or circumstances is held invalid by a court of competent jurisdiction, the invalidity, I didn't say that right, does not affect the provisions or applications of the section or related sections which can be given effect without the invalid provisions or application. And to this end, the provisions are severable, ordained and enacted this blank day of blank month 2020.
Thank you, Philip. All right. So we did go ahead and pass it. We will move on to the next ordinance in line. Thank you. We move on to resolutions. Again, we passed it, placing it on its second reading. It still has a third reading yet to come. To make sure when I said we did pass it, we did pass it for its second reading. So then we'll move on to resolutions. Resolution 22-20, establishing powers of city administrator due to the declared pandemic emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That back on March 16th, the city administrator emergency and public health emergency based on state statutes giving the authority.
Philip, you're going to have John mute his mic. There's nothing but static coming through.
I did try to mute it a while ago, but it said, I don't know what my participation number is, Brendan, but
It shows you're muted.
Am I muted?
Not you.
John, it shows you're muted.
John should be muted.
And you're fine now. Your voice is coming through fine now.
John should be muted when I talk because we're so close to each other.
Yeah.
So back to the issue. Because of the public emergency, there were a number of decisions that had to be made that are basically outside the typical authority granted to the city administrator. And this is anything from canceling capital projects, cutting benefits, canceling residential recycling pickup, closing the library, discontinuing the 3% credit card fee, waiving late fees, waiving the ability to shut residents off that don't pay their utility bills. All of those are outside the normal powers of a city administrator, but are under the umbrella based on the declared emergency. In talking with the Arkansas Municipal League, it was their recommendation that even though the declaration of emergency was issued, it would be beneficial to have the board adopt a resolution granting verbally sort of granting those authorities to the city administrator when there is this declaration of a public health emergency. The resolution only applies to the COVID-19 pandemic. It doesn't apply across the board. It's not permanent in nature. It is temporary as it relates to this public health emergency. And with that, staff would recommend and request approval of the resolution and will be available for any questions.
Thank you. Am I unmuted now? Thank you, Philip.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Philip. Are there any comments from the audience, from our attendees? Do any of you have any comments? Being none, I'll turn it over to the board for comments and or questions of staff. Marla?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have a problem with this. I just think that we may need to set up a parameter, like when it ends, like if the governor takes off the emergency, that, Philip has, 2 weeks, a month to follow up on getting everything to running back to normal. I just think we need to have the parameters there.
All right. Philip?
If you'll mute yourself. I can assure you, Director Sappington, that we are already trying to make arrangements for how we're going to get back to whatever normalcy is going to look like after the governor opens up the economy. But we are working on that, and it's my goal to try to get back as quickly as we can. The one thing I've told staff, and the one thing I would tell you as board members, it is my opinion that COVID-19 is going to change the way we do certain business. It may not change certain things like recycling and trash pickup, but it's likely to change how we interact with the public at the transfer station, at the library, maybe at animal services, and even here at City Hall for a period of, a year to 18 months, if not longer. But we want to get back to providing those services as quickly as we can, at the same time recognizing the safety of staff and the public from the COVID-19. But that is our goal.
Thank you.
Mayor, you're muted.
Are you doing that back there, Brandon? Okay. Okay, back. Thank you, Philip. We're having some technical difficulties with feedback, and it doesn't allow me to mute because somehow Philip's on my microphone. This is what I'm being told anyway. So thank you. Comments? Any other comments?
I do.
Mindy? Okay, Mindy.
I know this isn't necessarily the point of this.
Oops, I can't hear.
Oh,
can you
sorry.
hear?
I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Mayor, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. I know that this resolution is not for the purpose of what I'm about to say. It's not necessarily to look at the things that the administrator sort of has the authority to decide on, but because a couple of things are listed here, I just wanted to bring it up. And he and I spoke about this the other day. Obviously, as long as the COVID virus is a health threat, we're going to have to be careful. But on a couple of things like closing the library and the aquatic center, just as soon as, and I know you have plans for opening the library, at least on a part-time basis, and even some plans on the aquatic center, but if there's any way we can get those open, those that have been home for the last few months, and it's not a threat to health, then I think we should try to do that.
All right. Anyone else? Any other comments? Reed?
I just want to say thank you to Philip Patterson for the direction that you have shown to the city and to the city staff. I appreciate it.
No further comments. Do I have a motion to approve on resolution 22-20?
Mr.
Carol?
Mayor, I move that we approve resolution number 22-20.
Second.
Lisa, was that you?
Nope, it was
Oh,
Mindy.
Mindy, okay. Mindy, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the motion? Being none, we will vote on the motion to approve. Roll call.
Carol,
Yes.
Sappington,
Yes.
Smiley,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yep.
Bristler,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Resolution 22-20 is approved. Next is resolution 23-20, resolution of intent to obtain funding with the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission for water treatment plan improvement. Steve Gorzik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the board. Steve Gorzak, Public Works Director. For starters, the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission has approved the funding for the water treatment plant improvements, but now we have a lot of paperwork to do in order to be able to close the loan. There have been several documents that have already been submitted that require the city administrator's approval, but this one in particular requires the board approval because it's a resolution. And the resolution is very simple. It's just essentially stating that the city it will officially notify that the city has intent on issuing bonds in order to fund this project. So, but in order to do that, it requires the board to approve it. So basically that's it. The interest rate on the loan is still 1.75% on the $31 million that was approved by the Arkansas Natural Resources Commission, or ANRC, and the city will pay the bond using the 5/8 cent sales tax that was approved by the voters in 2018. So staff is available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any comments or questions for Steve from the audience? From the attendees?
I do have a question. Oh,
I'm not yet. I'm still waiting for attendees. I got to give them a minute in case they do want to speak.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. We have no comments from the attendees. I'll turn it over to staff, to the board for comments and questions of staff. Carol Smiley.
What determines when we begin payback?
Sorry, I didn't catch all of that.
What determines when we start payback?
Oh, as soon as the first disbursement is turned in. So we'll pay for, well, take that back. The loan has to be approved first, or has to close first. And once the loan is closed, then when we turn in our first disbursement, that's when we basically start paying the loan back.
And do we have any projected time frame?
The ANRC is predicting that the loan will close in August.
Okay, so are we looking at starting paybacks before the first of the year? A disbursement before the first of the year?
Yeah, there'll be disbursements before the first of the year. In fact, we'll be paying for some items that will show up before the loan is essentially closed. And then when the loan is closed, then we will take what we have paid up to date for reimbursement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Being none, I'll turn it over. Well, excuse me. Did somebody have one? Okay. If not, then we will vote on resolution 23-20. Roll call.
We need a motion.
Movement.
Oh, I don't have a motion, do I? I got to hurry here. I apologize, board. Brad?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution 23-20, declaring the city's intent to obtain funding through the Arkansas Natural Resource Commission for the water treatment plant improvements.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Reed? Now we have a motion to approve. It is official. So we will do a roll call on the vote.
Sappington? Sappington, you need to unmute.
You're mute.
Yes.
Thank you.
Smiley?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Hunt?
Yes.
Chrysler?
Yes.
Coleman?
Yes.
Carroll?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you. Now get to work, Steve. Start getting this thing. Let's get this project underway. This is going to be fantastic for Siloam Springs, and appreciate this board's ongoing support of staff in getting this citizens for passing that 5/8 cent sales tax to, in other words, to fund this much needed project. Thank you very much, citizens. All right, let's move on. We're out of regular business, so we'll go to administrator's report.
So Mayor, I've taken over and muted you, I believe. And you might want to turn your volume down a little bit because you can probably hear me in this room. I'll try to keep my report short so that you don't have to listen to my voice longer than you already have, having to read the ordinance. The good news is that for March, the sales tax receipts that were spent in January are up almost over 11.5% for the month and almost 12%, 11.9% for the year to date. From the county, the sales tax receipts are up 6.7% for the month and 13.8% for the year to date. As we talked about the fact that sales tax receipts are 2 months behind from when they're spent. So recognizing that we haven't seen March sales tax receipts, we won't see them until the end of May. We won't see the reduction and the impact of COVID-19 on our sales taxes until that time. The coffee with the board, due to COVID-19 that was scheduled on May the 2nd, the coffee with the board is officially canceled. We'll try to work that in maybe at a later date and figure out how to work that in based on social distancing and some of that. But in the discussion with the majority of you, I felt that the majority of you were supportive of canceling that for the May 2nd workshop. I've stated in the past about city board elections, the at-large positions 5, 6, and 7, and the mayor's position are up for re-election on November the 3rd. Anybody that's interested in running needs to meet with the city clerk and get an application, get their signatures, and file their paperwork between May the 13th through noon on May the 28th if you are interested in running for one of those positions. Most of you know that as part of the COVID-19 epidemic, we closed certain facilities like we talked about earlier. One of those was the transfer station. As of today, we are opening the transfer station back up on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. It's likely that we will move to opening that up more hours in the near future. We had to make some changes to the office design. Long term, I think it's important that we will probably make major changes to that office design, but we've got at least the shield, the plexiglass shield up there in the office to try to give some safety barrier between the public and the staff and the public. We've also, as discussed 2 weeks ago, we have discontinued the 3% credit card fee for paying utility bills. We've discontinued that through June the 11th. The idea is to get through 2 rounds of payments. We have, a payment that comes due early in the month and a payment that comes due sort of the latter part of the month. So we wanted to pick a time that gave everybody at least 2 payments they could make and not have to pay the 3% fee. As I stated earlier, we are making plans to slowly reopen the library, the animal shelter, reinstituting the curbside recycling. We're not there yet. No dates have been set at this time. We're sort of waiting on as the governor begins to reopen the economy and reopen some of the commercial businesses, we're going to follow suit. I suspect it will be a step process, a sort of a stair-step process. We'll open it up and then slowly open it up some more and get back to where we were normally. I have conversed with the majority of you about the impacts to the budget that we are concerned about as it relates to COVID-19. And I've given you sort of a summary, and for the public's benefit, I want to run through that summary of what we're doing, looking at our revenues and where we think we're going to be, based on looking at restaurants being down, looking at personal services being down, using a model that we obtained from the University of Arkansas, and trying to determine what the impact is going to be to our sales tax dollars. We were estimating about 8% in sales tax loss, in lost revenues. Now, that may not be as great based on some of the retail sales that we're seeing at certain businesses within the city. And the restaurants, some of them are doing a lot of curbside or out the door service. So it may not be as great as what we have projected, and we hope that's true. But we felt like we needed to be fairly tight in our calculations and fairly conservative in our calculations. But not only did we expect to see reductions in sales tax, we have seen a major reduction in the utility revenue from the electric side. With the closing of the JBU dorms, the closings of the public schools, the closings of Lazy Boy, the reduction in shift work at some of the other manufacturers, at the end of the first quarter, our utility sales were down right around $250,000. The majority of that money was in March. There was a milder winter in January and February, so I think some of that money is related to that. But the biggest amount of that reduction in $250,000 in utility sales was in that month of March. So we plugged that into the equation. We plugged in a number of other issues, dumpster rentals being down, the credit card fees being waived, interest rates being down. We also plugged in the idea of savings at the Family Aquatic Center, because right now we don't have enough staff, and it's unlikely that we're going to open it up at the end of May. And we're looking, and we'll talk about that if you wish, about whether or not we're going to be able to open it up or not. Based on all of that, we sat down with staff and asked staff to go and look at their budgets of where we could cut, trying to identify about 8% in cuts without getting into full-time personnel. Where we ended up is 6% in cuts pretty much across the board, and included some personnel cuts, but mainly those personnel cuts were related to hiring freezes, not filling positions that are currently unfilled. However, we did furlough part-time staff at the library and part-time staff in utility billing. And that furlough starts a week from Monday and runs through the end of May. I have spoken to all those staff members. I've said, if the reduced revenues aren't as great and we can open up the library and open up City Hall again, maybe the furlough won't be as long. If the cuts and the lost revenues are greater than we expected, that furlough may have to be extended. That's in the general fund. In the general fund, we also cut operations. We have suspended the comprehensive plan. That'll save us about $207,000. We've cut the training and travel budget. We've cut some new software projects. We've cut a number of $25,000 projects, and included that, as I said, training and travel and training funds. I have to tell you that the board's contingency and the board's travel funds too.
Hearing you all of a sudden.
Heck.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, maybe it's the paper, sorry. On the capital side, within the general fund, we also suspended the Main Street design project. That'll save the city $130,000. We have noticed both of those contractors for the comprehensive plan and the Main Street design that we are putting those projects on hold at the moment. We also cut another $220,000 out of capital budget. That includes 2 police vehicles, improvements, room renovations at the police department, parking lot improvements at the fire department, office remodel at the library, animal shelter flooring, and the bike and ped counter that was in the community development department's capital budget. In maintenance, we cut out the purchasing of a pickup truck, and we also cut out some IT projects. On the street fund side, we identified the largest, one of the larger projects to cut, which was $620,000 for the Harvard Street side paths. In the utility funds, we're going to pull back on doing some of the tree trimming. We're not going to buy as many road carts as we had originally budgeted for in sanitation. And then we're also cutting out materials and supplies and small tools. And on the capital side of the utility fund, there are a number of existing light poles on 412 that we had plans to replace this year. These are not the ones that were destroyed by the tornado in October of last year, but just ones that we wanted to replace anyway. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do some of the underground conversions, the overhead electrical to underground conversions. We've cut the tractor and mower that was approved for the water plant budget. There are some water line extensions that we're not, or replacements that we're not going to do. And then there were some other projects. We talked about the AMI electric meters, advanced metering. We're not going to do that project currently. We were going to do a rate study at both the water, wastewater, and electric rates. We're going to cut that out for the time being. And then also there were some other issues at the wastewater plant, some manhole repair forms and other smaller projects that we could cut. And in the end, as it stands today, along with cuts at the airport for purchasing fuel, because we're going to see less fuel sales, we have identified just over $2.9 million in cuts to our roughly $64 million budget. This all assumes that the recovery is relatively short, less than 6 months. If the recovery is going to be greater than that, it is likely that we will have to make more cuts. And at that point, it is likely that payroll and staff will have to be part of a larger part of that, unless you as a board and we as staff ask you to dip into reserves. And today that's not our plan, but that may be part of the mix if the recovery is longer. And that will be a board decision. I don't have that authority. But I wanted to go over that with you and ask you if you have any questions as it relates to those cuts. I stated the Family Aquatic Center, with the loss of the JBU students, we didn't have very many applicants for the management lifeguard positions, which we typically hire JBU students for. At this time, we are looking at a plan to open the Family Aquatic Center in July and operate it through July and August, but probably on a reduced schedule. Our staff is looking at the CDC's recommendations for aquatic centers. We don't believe that COVID-19 can be transferred from the water because of the chlorine in the water, but it could still be transferred from coughing and sneezing while you're in the water next to somebody else. And how do we keep the 6-foot separation? You can't wear a mask while you're in the water. So those are issues that we're still looking at based on what staff has told me in their discussions with the other entities. Rogers is the only other city in the corridor who's trying to come up with a game plan for opening their aquatics facility. Springdale tells us that they're not going to open their aquatics facility, and the other cities are sort of on hold like us. They're sort of in limbo trying to figure out what they're going to do. And we don't have I don't have a plan for you today that I can say this is exactly what we're going to do. But our goal is to open it if possible, but again, probably on a limited basis for the whole summer. And that's my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
right, there we go. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Philip. Okay. Before I turn it over then for director reports, I'll just ask the board if any of y'all have any particular questions regarding Philip's administrator's report regarding how we're going to be handling some of the funding shortages and what have you, just his report that he just gave. So if you have any questions, now is your time.
Mr. Mayor.
I know he has given, he's tried to keep everybody appraised of what was going on, so there may not be a whole lot of questions, but if there's specifics that you'd like to know, now's your time. Carol?
I don't have any specifics. I just want to thank Philip and the entire staff for looking at this and coming up with a plan that we can at least go forward. We don't know what actually is happening. We have no clear focus on how long is this going to happen, how long it's going to last. So I do appreciate what has transpired, along with the aquatic center. I think that we just have to wait and see. Maybe even if we only opened it up part-time, but that's would be a suggestion maybe. But thank you. Those are tough decisions to make.
Yes, tough decision. Yes. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Philip, you can't ask yourself questions. Okay.
I want to just say one other thing, and that is I want to thank the staff. Our staff stepped up to the plate. The difficulty of going back to your budget and trying to find 6 or 8% cuts without dipping into personnel any more than we did is not an easy thing to do. The ability to say that we have fluff in our budget, we don't. We have projects that we all need to get done. They're projects that you as a board want us to do, the public wants us to do. But I commend staff for the ability to go back and seriously look at every one of their budgets and try to figure out where the cuts could be made. And I want to say publicly that I thank them for their efforts, because it wasn't easy in doing what they did. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. All right. Okay. There's no further comments for him. It's time for director comments. Huh? Oh, Bob, did you have a comment? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yes, I was going to do this, and I think it's probably more appropriate right now. I'm amazed at the steps that we've had to take. I'm so pleased that Administrator Patterson has gone through all of this. I do feel ethically as the board member that I would like to have my board pay reduced by 50% for the next 6 months. I know that's not going to account for a whole lot. You're not going to be able to hire 2 or 3 employees, but I just feel from the standpoint of ethics on my part, that's something I'd like to do, and I'd like to have the city clerk and the finance director just reduce my pay by 50% for the next 6 months.
I'm sorry, but I can't hear him.
Can't hear. I hear it. I missed that. We got somebody's got some paper or something, some movement going on that's causing us not to be able to hear very well. Did you just make a motion to do something, Bob? I missed that. I couldn't understand.
Oh, sure. I don't know if, can everybody hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Do what? Well, hang on a second. I'm asking Brendan if he can figure out what this might be. I can hear you right now. I just need to get a little closer.
Well, if I get any closer, I'll be eating this screen, but
Bob,
it might be that you.
Yes.
Can you step back a hair from the screen and then speak up louder?
And it might be the fans that are going.
That's what I was going to say. You've got a fan on that might be kind of blowing air across that microphone and blowing out the sound a little bit.
Reed, you have one of those as well.
Okay. Hands off. Is that any better?
No.
No. All right, go ahead. Maybe I can consider my director's report.
He said he'd try director's report.
Okay. Okay, so you're gonna state what you want to state during your director's report. Okay, very good. Okay. I would request that if you haven't been called on, to go ahead and mute yours, so that we're only hearing the person who's called upon to speak at this time. Maybe we'll catch out what it is. Okay. So, any further questions of Administrator Patterson? None. Then we're going to start this evening with Reed Carroll. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep mine short and sweet and simple. I am highly encouraged by the strength that has been shown by our community, by our businesses, by the city of Siloam Springs during this pandemic. And it's without being otherwise, I just want to say I'm proud to be part of the community and a part of what is being done in this community to get through this. To me, I'm excited about what we have in store. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed. If you'll mute, and then Carol, you'll need to unmute, or Phil, are you doing that? No, they're doing it themselves. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say, we've been talking a lot about the library being closed, and I did go on to our website and was looking specifically at the library, because I know you can still go online and download books and different things. And there is, if you would go to Siloam Springs Library Digital Resource, there towards the bottom of that is an additional online resources, and Amazon has a place on there that all of their audiobooks are free. And there's a lot of audiobooks on there for children, for different resources for parents, because I know that, they're home with those kids. But you can also download just reading books on an e-reader if you can do that. So there are some resources for our library, even though they are closed. And the only other thing I wanted to say, I have been out, I haven't been in any stores, but I've driven by. There's a lot of people out. There's a lot of people, and they're not wearing masks. And I would encourage everybody to wear a mask. I don't think they realize how important that is. It protects me. It protects you. So please indulge me and wear a mask. If you don't have one, I think Lisa can give you one. She's been making masks. I've made masks. A lot of people have been making masks. And the other thing, a lot of people have been asking me what those little pinwheels are in front of the police station in different areas. And I think most people realize that those are in honor of child abuse, but there are 392 pinwheels in front of the police department, and those represent one child this year that has been a confirmed child abuse. Thank you.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Okay, now then we'll go on to Mr. Bob. We're to you now.
Well, can you hear me any better now?
Yes.
Is that better?
Right now.
Maybe my fan was blowing all my words away. As I mentioned before, I appreciate all that the staff has done. I know this has been a very hard time for everybody on the staff and employed by the city. We're making some great steps and a lot of moves that are affecting people financially. And I just mentioned earlier that I feel ethically motivated to ask the city clerk, the finance director, to reduce my city pay by 50% for the next 6 months. I know that's not going to amount to a whole lot of money, but I feel like I can have some portion if I'm not in the point where I think I'm I just look forward to when we can get opened up and get back to business. And I just pray every day that this whole thing will go away as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Mindy? Oops. Hang on, Mindy. Hang on.
Got it.
There
Got
we
it.
go.
Okay. Turned myself off and then I forgot to turn myself back on. I want to thank you to the staff for working to make it easier for businesses to conduct business, even in those older buildings. During that discussion, it was not lost on me when we were talking about drive-through lanes. Was not lost on me that the staff is working to make it a little bit easier for businesses to operate. In that particular instance, I just don't see the need to make the specific provision requested for older buildings, and am concerned about some of the buildings used as examples that would be allowed to reduce drive-through width to 10 feet and then possibly get a variance for no green space, which would not leave much space between the two properties, if I'm understanding that. But I do appreciate the staff for their work, and I especially appreciate the special use requirements that they came up with for restaurants located near residential property. So just wanted to make sure they understood that. Thank you, Philip, for your leadership. Thank you for working with department heads to make some very difficult decisions related to cutting the budget. You and the department heads, as you said, made some difficult decisions, and the fact that not more personnel were affected by it is pretty amazing, and also that you didn't have to dip into reserves yet. So thank you. I also thank you for making difficult decisions early on to protect the city staff and public. I think it's important for the public to understand that some of the decisions that were made early on, such as closing the transfer station, were made based on the information available at the time. Also prior to some of the measures other businesses have taken with the clear screens, et cetera. You know, we were worried about protecting our staff and our public, and that's why the transfer station was closed in particular. But now that we're able to provide protective measures, I do appreciate that you're reopening the transfer station, at least on a part-time basis. I thank you for waiving the credit card fee for a couple of months, and just want to remind people that with both of those issues, the transfer station and credit card fees, we did hear from the public, and we listened to the public, and we made changes based on it, and that was under our city administrator's direction. So thank you for that. And I will do what I can as a board member to help in this situation, whatever that may mean, financially, physically, whatever. So we'll just wait to see what needs to be done. And I also I mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again. I just appreciate the businesses in town that have gotten creative with curbside delivery, pickup, all that kind of things when we're talking about restaurants, even the Beautiful Lives place downtown. You can shop online for clothes there. So people have gotten creative to be able to still serve the needs of the public. So I appreciate that. Appreciate teachers as well and parents for what they're doing. Lots of people are coming together to make this situation as easy as possible for everyone involved.
Thank you, Mindy. Brad, you're up.
I am now.
You are now.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to applaud Director Coleman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My challenge would be is not to cut the pay, but to take 50% of our pay and put it back into the community, directly into the pockets of small business. So that is my choice on there, but thank you, Bob, for igniting that fire. So thank you, sir. I know one thing that we've done right since I've been on the board. We may have done more than one thing, but let's call it one thing, is that our quality of life projects that are free to the public, when we are in a crisis or being challenged financially and emotionally and all the things that are impacting us psychologically and physiologically in the community, these green spaces, these connectivities are being utilized more than ever. And so I just like to thank the citizens for getting out there, I get out of their way or they get out of mine when we're on the walking around town. And I really appreciate them doing that. I have two things that either I would like some input from my fellow directors or from the city administrator. But there's two requests I'd like to make, and they're regarding specifically downtown and the historical district. I'd like to have staff explore allowing restaurants to add more tables or settings on the sidewalks along storefronts to help them accommodate as we start to phase in, so they can accommodate customers and also maintain social distancing. That is the first one. The second one is allow staff to explore a pilot project for downtown restaurants that go along with the first statement I made, and to do a pilot project on an entertainment district. So these said restaurants can provide beer and wine at the table with a food order. I think this is important right now on two things. The obvious, we're trying to help small business survive in this current climate and continue economic rebound as we start to phase in. So that's the two things I would request from city staff. The next would just be, please follow the guidelines as we start to phase in, because that's going to become a reality as we phase in. And stay humble and kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Marla?
I just also want to thank Philip for all the work that he's done. We're in uncharted waters. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And so we're all reacting, and we've not been able to prepare for this. And each day, like I say, we're just going to have to continue to meet the needs of the citizens and do what's best and what's the safest for them. I think our governor has given us a good guideline to do and how to come out of this with steps in place. I just, applaud everybody that's still out there working, that's risking their health to benefit us. I want to thank the school workers that are doing the bus routes, feeding the kids. These are things that we don't have to do, but we're doing. I also want to thank, the healthcare workers. We have no idea what they're going through and what they're having to do to protect their families. And I want to thank my volunteers at the Manna Center, where our food pantry is going strong. We're still feeding people, and I couldn't do it without the good volunteers and the support of the community. And I'm just real blessed, and I just pray grace over all of us in these scary times. I'm through.
Thank you, Marla. Lisa, you've got comments and a responsibility here. Very good. Okay.
Do it. I want to say thank you to all the city staff as we go through these difficult times. Your dedication is really greatly appreciated. I know the budget cuts are hard, but I'm glad staff jobs have been saved. My family continues to pray for our nation, our leaders, our community. If there's anything our family can do, just let us know, please. We serve a mighty God that will see us through this. And it is my responsibility to make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
So that is a very nice. Get that, Bob, how well she did that. She learned that. He picked that up from you. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah. Okay, board, we have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Reed, Carol. All right. We have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion on the motion to adjourn? None. All right. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Woo pig suey. Stay safe.